Meet Josh. Josh is Mr. Convenient. He loves to do everything conveniently, like request cab services with a smartphone, grocery shopping online, make payment and bank transfers with his phone, and more. But something else makes him tick, and everyone wants to know what it is. Well, Josh buys and sells stocks all by himself online, and his trade secret? Stock Trade. It's easy. He logs on to www.armstocktrade.com and buys and sells stocks, subscribes for treasury bills and government bonds, views all his portfolios at a glance, stays on top of news and market trends, executes his trading fast, and he does this and more all by himself. Now, that's what makes Josh the coolest guy. Wouldn't you rather be like Josh? Get on board. Log on to www.armstocktrade.com or download the Arm Stock Trade app on Google Play Store or Apple iOS Store and make money now.
Business Express on Smooth 98.1, brought to you by ARA. Local and global market opportunities safely at your fingertips.
Good morning, and thank you for joining me for Business Express 981. Like I mentioned yesterday, Rotis has gone on a much-needed vacation. He needs a rest, and he'll be back stronger. In the meantime, I'll be holding it down for him for the rest of the week, and then I will do the same for next week. And for now, we have in the studio our special guest for today's conversation, Itomi Edache. Itomi Edache is from ARM Securities. Hi, Itomi. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
How are you feeling this morning, Tuesday?
Oh, I'm feeling better. How are you?
I'm good. I like that better line of statement because I believe that Tuesday is the most productive day of the week. Monday is a drag with meetings and all. So Tuesday is a good start. All right. Join the conversation by sending us messages on WhatsApp. WhatsApp number is 0809-444-0981. You can do that on Twitter as well. Twitter is at Smooth981FM. The hashtag for today's conversation is Business Express 981. As always, Itomi, the headline inflation rose to 14.23% year on year in October from 13.71% in September. That's a huge hike. What do you think contributed to that increase?
Okay, so we've seen inflation trend higher since the start of this year, and can you hear me clearly?
Loud and clear.
Okay, so inflation has been trending higher since the start of the year. Particularly for this month, we saw food inflation increased significantly by 73 basis points to 17.83% year on year. Similarly, the core inflation also rose significantly, and the increases on both ends contributed to the overall growth, the overall increase we saw in headline inflation. Yeah.
Yes, interested. It's also interesting that you mentioned food inflation because onion is scarce. Right? Food availability continues to be an ongoing topic in Nigeria. Usually it would have been the most talked about thing or commodity around this time because of the seasonal demands, right? But that is taking a new dimension this year. Food inflation year on year increased to 17.38% in October from 16.66% in September. It's alarming to me. I don't know if it is to you. Have you found onion? And what do you think is behind this food inflation?
Okay, yeah. So it's not that much of a surprise to me. I am coming from the fact that I think late August, early September, there was flooding in the north. So the northern region, most states in the north were flooded, and we expected that to adversely impact food prices. To buttress, recent report from FuseNet showed that there was flooding in Kebbi State, and that destroyed about 450,000 hectares of rice farmland. Also, a lot of crops were destroyed, and that just contributed to the higher prices that we've seen so far in terms of food, and even the price of onions as well. So I think that just explains what we are seeing so far.
My goodness, I saw a picture of some guy 2 days ago. He posted up sitting on some, onions that is actually spread in the room, and he said, "Call me. I work in an oil company now." Oil used to be the lead products in Nigeria, but onion seems to be taking that toll. But we're seeing other forms of inflation. There's core inflation that rose from 10.5% in September to 11.14% in October. First of all, can you break down what core inflation is and what is behind this particular increase that we're seeing?
All right, so core inflation includes all other items except farm produce. So
okay.
All other items that are not volatile, like food, for instance. So we're looking at increases in energy prices, furnishing, clothing, transportation, and the likes. All those other ones fall into the core basket. So what we've seen play out for core inflation is that we've seen higher PMS prices. If you notice, this time last year we were buying petrol for 145 naira per liter, and now it's gone. It's higher than we were and than it was last year. And we've seen how that filtered into the core basket. Precisely, there's a particular core sub-index called HWEJF, that's housing, water, gas, electricity, and fuel. That has increased by 20 bips. Health inflation also rose by 49 basis points. Transport also rose by 46 basis points. Furnishing has also increased. So all of this largely contributed to the uptick we saw in core inflation year on year.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that really nice breakdown, Itomi. That now I'm more informed about things like that. Now, with inflation at 14.23%, what does that mean for the return of investment for Nigerians?
Okay, so it simply means Nigerians will be getting lower return on their investment, or in some cases, negative real return. Now, precisely when you overlay the 12-month inflation number, doing an average of 12 months of inflation, that's give you about 12.64% year on year. And then you overlay that with fixed income yield. I think we're at 1.86%. And when you also compare that with the closing rate of 364-day NTB auction rates, you see that closed at 0.3% as at last week. So when you put all of this together, you'll be getting a negative return of say 10.78% to 12.34% respectively. So generally what this just means is that you're getting a negative return on your investment as an investor in Nigeria. Okay,
that's not good. Anything negative is bad. I haven't filled my tank in 2 weeks. Rotus, by the way, said he bought fuel over the weekend. Fuel prices went up over the weekend. Rotus, for one, said he bought his at 168 naira per liter. How does this come into the mix when we talk about prices of goods and services? Petrol versus food.
So first, you just want to understand what drives Nigeria's inflation, and I think it is important to say that the kind of inflation we have is a cost push inflation. So most of our inflation is driven by higher increases in cost of production. So you see, when fuel prices increase, that directly impacts transportation costs, and that may also cause some producers or suppliers to increase the prices of their commodities. Now, when you look at how it impacts inflation numbers, if it has a direct impact on core inflation, as it directly impacts energy prices. While for food inflation, you see how that indirectly affects food inflation via increased transportation costs. So, for instance, if I'm a supplier in the local market here, and I'm buying from somewhere in the north, and I have to transport those commodities down here, paying higher transportation costs, that would invariably lead to higher prices. I have to increase my prices, and that just transmits to higher prices of
the product itself.
Goods. Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Thanks for that. Now, speaking of fuel prices, as I mentioned earlier, Mr. Temipire Silva, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, reportedly said that the recent increase in the price of petrol was as a result of the announcement by American pharmaceutical company Pfizer on the recent breakthrough in the fight against coronavirus. And I'll quote him verbatim. He said, "What happened recently was because of the announcement of a vaccine for COVID-19 by Pfizer. With that, crude oil prices went up a little bit. If you've been following crude oil prices, you would have seen the crude oil prices went up a little bit and as a result of this announcement. So when crude oil prices go up a little bit, then you see that it will instantly reflect on the price of petrol, which is a derivative of crude oil." Tell me, what do you make of that statement? I just feel like it's for the ordinary man or for the average man, it's like a sweeping blame game. They announced the price, they announced that there's a vaccine possibly coming out, and then, boof, crude oil prices increases, then we can increase petrol price. How does that average man now come to terms with this?
Okay, so since the deregulation of the downstream sector, what we've seen is, okay, so let me just break this down. Last year where the downstream sector was still regulated, PMS prices, as petrol prices, was at 145 naira per litre. So it was fixed at that range, irrespective of what was happening in the global market. But now that has been taken off. So now the market now reflects what is happening in the global market. For instance, if crude oil prices fall in the global market, what happens is that there would be a revision in the amount. There will be a revision in the amount of the amount you pay for petrol per litre in Nigeria here. Like if you recall, I think somewhere in between March and April or so, petroleum prices was reduced about 121 naira per litre, and that during that period, crude oil prices fell. So what he's just saying is that due to the fact that there was a vaccine that it brought, due to the fact that there was
an announcement.
There was an announcement about the COVID-19 vaccine. That just boosted sentiment in the global market, and that led to higher crude oil prices. So locally, what that just translated to was that they had to increase prices locally because the landing costs and other costs that is being factored into the refined petrol increase as well. So they had to increase the prices, and that's why you're seeing that they increased it to about 161 naira per litre. So I think that's it.
Tommy, it's very interesting how these things happened. The trend of world economy, decisions being made, how events or lineup of events affect prices of goods and services, especially crude oil. I'm just thinking about the analysis you just gave and how all these things are playing out. Is it possible, because there's a chance that the world might come back to normal in the near future? Is that why the factors or the key players decided to increase this price of crude? Or is it so you know how it is that there's an announcement by Pfizer that there could be a possible vaccine, and the health practitioners or experts said it has 90% efficacy, which means possibly that it could be rolled out anytime soon, with Europe and other world economies now reaching out to get the first vials that will be released. That in itself, to the average man, is an indication that this whole COVID lockdown thing that's been experienced around the world might just be settling soon, right? Could that be what affected the sentiment of those who fix prices for crude oil to decide to increase it?
Okay, yeah, of course. So that affected the global sentiment. So that just naturally means that demand for crude oil may not be as low as we expect. Seeing the fact that there's a vaccine now,
yes,
it means people will be getting the treatment. It means a lot of economies will be able to, demand for more crude oil than usual, and that would naturally lead to higher crude oil prices, amongst other factors. So that's why we saw that. That's why we saw the global. That's why we saw the uptick in crude oil prices on the global market.
Yes.
And for us here, what it just means is that crude oil prices petrol prices now will be quite volatile. So when it's up in the global market, we'll have higher petrol prices here. So for instance, anything can happen. That market is really, really volatile. If something else happens next week and you see prices crash, we might likely see a reversal in there. A review. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, it feels like we're living two lives in 2020. Something happens, we change. COVID happens, we adjust. With all these adjustments happening, is it possible that, there could be an increase in price of goods and services? That normally obtains around this season, like I mentioned earlier. Do you think that could happen again, beyond these crude oil fluctuations and sentiments?
Okay, so beyond crude oil, you're asking if prices could really increase or reduce?
Yes, Christmas.
Right, that's locally.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, so of course, there's always a December effect where we get a lot of people buying goods and services, just to celebrate the season. So there's usually that period where we see higher prices and the likes. But I think we may see prices go up. Reason is, like I said, the flooding has already affected prices, one. Mm-hmm. Another thing is, there's already lower output. Early this year when farmers were to be planting, that was when the whole COVID-19 lockdown started. And so they couldn't plant as much as they could, as they should.
Yes.
And that just translates to lower output for the rest of the year. So I'm saying come December, we might see prices go higher, boosted by demand and lower output. But I don't think people will be buying as much, looking at the fact that the purchasing power has reduced so much, compared to how we were in 2019, 2018. But still, I expect that their food prices will be higher.
Hey, Tommy, you know what they call this? Bas boost. Both ends.
Exactly.
Yinka sent in a message here on WhatsApp. He said, I don't want to call Mr. Silva a liar, but recall that crude oil prices dipped at some point and they didn't reduce the price of petrol. So what exactly is he saying? When the price of crude went low as low as $20 per barrel from around 6 months, no reduction was announced until they made a biggie of it, saying that the president ordered the price reduction back then. What happened to those 6 months of low prices of crude? I've not wondered why PPMC announces the increase in prices and only the president orders a reduction. Yinka, let me remind you that now it's now market reflective. It's actually the market that has now determined the prices because they are the ones that are bearing the brunt of purchasing. We still purchase refined crude from abroad. Yeah. So Precious from Ogba says, Valentine, it's not going to be funny if global oil prices go down and it does not reflect in the local fuel price. Exactly. Personally, I'm going to hold them to account. I'm like, wait. Guys, hold up. Anyway, Itomi Edache, you've been fantastic on the show. Thank you so much. Itomi Edache is from ARM Securities. I hope you have a lovely day. All right?
Yeah, you too. Thank you for having me.
All right, cheers. Guys, thanks for listening to Business Express 981. Let's keep that conversation going on social media with that hashtag Business Express 981. Next up, 7:30 for Freshly Pressed 981.
Business Express on Smooth 98.1. Brought to you by ARA. Local and global market opportunities safely at your fingertips.